zone target for the Bears this year. And listen, if he's a red zone target and he gets 8 to 10 touchdowns, that's huge. So I'm not saying it's going to happen, but there's the potential that it could.
There's always potential. I don't see it, but Rashad Shaheed or Rashid Shaheed, yeah.
So he's sitting behind Chris Olave. Listen, I don't know. I've got some opinions. He had 46 targets, 719 yards, 5 touchdowns last year. You know what? It's hard for me to talk about this Saints offense. I watched some highlights from their preseason game yesterday. I've read a lot of stuff about them. Derek Carr to me he's not having a great camp. I just don't know what to feel about Shaheed or Olave. I know everybody's got Olave, um, you know, are super high on him. Um, I don't know. I'm not necessarily buying into that yet because I'm just not convinced that there's that chemistry yet. But time will tell. Shaheed's also had an issue. His rookie year he was out. I think it was 4 games. Last year he missed a couple games. And he's dealing with some stuff right now as well. So I think 50. I think I might have ranked him actually a little bit high compared to some of these other receivers. I think some of these other receivers are going to have a better year than Shaheed. I definitely think that he's definitely someone you have to draft. When you look at who else is on the Saints team for a wide receiver perspective behind him and Olave, they just don't have a lot of depth on this team right now. And you always got to deal with Kamara coming out of the backfield because, as everybody knows, Kamara is just like McCaffrey, where he's going to get a lot of receptions. If I had to do it over again, I probably would rank Shaheed a little bit lower until I kind of see how it shakes out and where he's at, from a health perspective as well.
Yeah, and I kind of agree with you there. I think he'll have a decent production this year if he stays healthy, but I don't know if I'd put him higher than 55. Looking at this, I'd probably drop him at least 2 or 3 spots. I might even just swap him straight up with Dobbs, but it's hard for me to judge. Like, Carr hasn't had the greatest last few years, and the only positive coming out of this whole situation right now is the fact they don't have Michael Thomas in that offense anymore. So,
And Carr struggled yesterday in their preseason game. He did not have a great start.
um,
And he's got Taysom Hill and Rattler right on his heels, and they signed him to a big contract. I just think the Saints are a mess right now.
yeah, but I still could see him being around the 55 range. He is one of those speedy, quick receivers that at any given moment could catch, 60 plus yard touchdown and put up 13 to 15 right away.
I agree with you if he's on the field.
Yeah. But I agree with you on the aspect of it's a hard offense to judge with everything, so. Rashee Rice.
Yeah, Rice was really hard to judge this year. I know a lot of guys, have him ranked a lot higher on some of these other sites, and that's all fine and dandy. He definitely had a great year last year. Just missed 1,000 yards, had 79 targets. Here's the problem from a fantasy perspective: he's going to be suspended because of what happened. Nobody knows what that suspension is going to be yet. It could be 6 games, it could be 4 games, it could be 8 games. We don't know. So, even though he's got the greatest talent in the world, that from a fantasy perspective, that doesn't help you if he's not playing. So, given the fact that I keep hearing that he's at minimum going to have 6 games. It could be all the way up to 8 games. Who knows? The NFL could suspend him all year. I don't know. I just didn't feel comfortable. I didn't have him in the top 50. I don't. He kind of shook into the 50. I don't know how he got in there, but I definitely think that he probably isn't going to be in the top 50, given the fact that um, he's probably going to miss a minimum of at least 6 games. So what that does mean though is, given the fact that he's going to be out and Hollywood Brown just got hurt, they're talking he's going to miss several weeks. Potentially, they're not even sure, when he's going to be able to come back and if he's even going to start the regular season. It's definitely going to boost some of the other receivers on the team. Xavier Worthy, who they drafted, Sky Moore, uh, Tony. So there's going to be other guys on there that are going to have opportunities and stuff. But it was really hard for me to rank him in the top 50, not knowing how many games he's going to be suspended and stuff. If you want to take a flyer on him late in the draft, you certainly can. Um, but here's the thing, then he's going to take up a bench spot, because in most leagues that I've been in, usually they're not going to let you have a guy on,
on IR or
on
something.
IR. They're only going to let you have guys on IR. They're not going to let you have guys on your roster that are not on our IR. Some leagues do. Most leagues that I've been in don't. So he's going to eat up a roster spot, um, you know, uh, on your roster um, until you know how long he's suspended and stuff. Hopefully that's going to happen before most people's drafts, because if you know when he's suspended, then you can
You can
decide
kind
if
of
you
plan when you want to draft him if you want to take him.
if you want to take him and take a flyer. He's definitely probably going to be a guy that's going to be a hot waiver wire addition if he doesn't get drafted, depending on if and when he plays this year.
I think regardless, he'll end up getting drafted. I just wouldn't draft him higher than you need to. Because like you said, he's gonna be suspended for a select amount of games. That's not gonna help you in the first month or month and a half. That could even put you behind quite a bit if you do draft him earlier than what you probably should. I understand the hype around him, but he's gonna be off the field. He's then gonna have to get into the groove, which could take a week or two, maybe 3 for him to fully get back into it because he's already gonna be coming into the season late. Um, for me personally, I could just see him struggling coming off a suspension and getting into the mix of things. And I don't know. It's hard for me to say I'd want him on my team because I wouldn't.
Like right now, he can practice with them and stuff
Yeah.
in training camp and in games and the preseason games. But once they make a decision, then he's not going to be at the facility. So,
but I do think this skyrockets Xavier Worthy quite a bit because, like you said, Hollywood Brown's hurt, who we actually come up to here pretty quick in this list, and Worthy as well. So, um, it'll be interesting because the suspension, the injury, I could see them trying to bring in another receiver. There's too many intangibles right now where I think we have him placed perfectly. The only reason he's in the top 50 is because of the other averages between the other guys, because they're lower than him.
yeah. Well, and I could definitely see them maybe bringing Juju in at Kansas City, because Juju was there last year.
2 years ago, yeah.
Or 2 years ago.
Any one of these receivers is really hard to judge. Tank Dell.
Is that Tank though?
Yes.
Um, Tank Dell had I thought he had a good year last year when he was out on the field, considering he was only on the field for 11 games. He had over 700 yards, 47 receptions. I definitely think this guy's got a lot of talent. Uh, so I don't see him having the same amount of production, though. That's just my opinion. I think his production is going to it's going to drop off. Given the fact that they brought in Diggs, they brought in, they've got Collins, who they just signed to a big contract. This is one team that is definitely loaded with a bunch of receivers. I mean, this receiving core on Houston is insane. The amount of guys they got on here. I know a lot of teams are going to be watching to see who they keep, who they don't keep, maybe potentially trade somebody. Um, me personally, I'd love for the Vikings to trade for him, but I don't think that's going to happen. I think Houston's high on him, but from a fantasy perspective, I think his numbers might be right around what he did last year if he plays the whole season. I think he could be around maybe 50 receptions. And I don't know that he'll have as many touchdowns, but he could have 7, maybe 5 touchdowns. It's just really hard, you know, to judge on this because, like we talked about with Green Bay, right? And listen, you got Nico Collins, who I think is there. Everybody knows Stephon Diggs. Don't get me wrong, I love Stephon Diggs. He's a great wide receiver, but he's not going to be happy if he's not getting the ball. That's just
He was
Stephon
already
Diggs.
unhappy in a preseason game.
That's just Stephon Diggs' MO. That's what it is. So, they're I know that there was some issues with him and Josh Allen. Maybe going into a more laid back QB like CJ Stroud will help and stuff. But I definitely think Dell could definitely be in the. I definitely think he's going to be in the top 50. Given the fact that he has the potential to have anywhere from 5 to 10 touchdowns, right? So, but it wouldn't surprise me if somebody reaches out and maybe sees if they can trade for him. I definitely think that Houston's probably been on the phone with a lot of teams about the receivers to see if they can get anything for some of these receivers because they got Nico, they got Stephon, they got Tank, they got Noah Brown, who we talked about already. They got Robert Woods, who's healthy, and actually had a decent game yesterday for them. They got John Mechie, who's another young wide receiver. I mean, they just got a.
Well, they traded for Ben Skorot. I don't even know how to say it.
Showrock from
Showrock from the Rams.
Yeah, so they've got a whole bunch of receivers. So I think he's definitely someone that's going to need to be drafted, but you got to kind of wait and see how the preseason here plays out and in regards to where he falls on their depth chart and if he's even still with the team.
I think you hit that pretty right on the spot. I don't really have much to say. You covered that pretty well, and I personally would love to see him on the Vikings, but that probably will never happen. But you can't tell. Big Vikings fans, obviously. But Jeudy.
Yeah, I might have had him ranked a little bit low. And I think the only reason I probably ranked him a little bit lower is compared to Wiggs is because of, he has struggled, but last year he did play 16 games, um, but he hasn't had, I think he had one full season, maybe, back in 2020. I think that was before they switched to 17 games.
I believe so.
But he hasn't had a full season since then. Now, granted, he played 16 games last year, 15 games the year before, and then 2021 he only played 10. I think this guy's got a tremendous amount of talent. And I think that he is definitely somebody that could lift the Browns receiving core, with Cooper, and then they got Elijah Moore, who they brought over from the Jets. They've got a few other guys that are not well known and stuff. So I think he's got the talent, and he could have a decent year. I definitely think he needs to be drafted. For me though, I think he might. There's some guys that might be that should be maybe a little bit higher than him that we have already talked about on this list until we kind of see how it pans out. But with that said, I think that he could still have a decent season. With the Browns, potential top 50 guy, yes. He's got too much talent not to say that. But for me personally, it's somebody that I'd have on my bench. but I don't know that I'd say right away that I'm going to throw him in as a flex.
Yeah, for me, I have this weird gut feeling that Deshaun Watson's gonna have a great year, and I think that kind of swayed me to put Jeudy a little bit higher. I actually could see Jeudy and Cooper having similar numbers this year. Not like fully similar. Like I think Cooper will still have that edge, but for some reason, I just have like this feeling that he's gonna have a really good year with Watson. I think his touchdown production will be up. I don't think he'll eclipse 1,000 yards, but I think his touchdowns will make up for it because I think a lot of the focus will still be on Amari Cooper, and we really haven't seen like two solid receivers on this offense in some time. Like I don't remember the last time we've seen like two.
Well, Elijah Moore's he's got talent.
No, he's not bad. Yeah,
he just hasn't been given an opportunity. He had some issues, with the coaching staff. So yeah, I mean, like I said, I think he's where he needs to be right now.
For me, he's a definite flex. If you don't have like a third receiver that's better than him on your roster, but I could also see an argument for him being a bench player at the start of the year just because, like you pointed out, we really haven't seen a full season put together. Even his year when he was like top 25 as a receiver, he missed 2 games. So
well, and he's on a new team and a new offense, and he has to build chemistry with a new quarterback. So that all plays into how these guys.
And this offense is a little more run heavy at times too, so like I could still see the argument there as well, especially when Chubb comes back. I could see them leaning on Chubb a little more once he's in the swing of things, but
and I think he's still dealing with something. I don't think it's anything major, but I do think he's still got some kind of tweaks. I don't know if it's his hamstring or what, but it's something to keep an eye on.
Yeah, I definitely do think he could be in that top 40 range personally. All right, Kansas City player number 2, Xavier Worthy. Who I think after the Hollywood Brown injury, which happened yesterday, we have.
Well, I think him and Hollywood Brown. Well, personally, I think Worthy should jump up to where, at bare minimum, where we have Brown ranked right now, given Brown's injury. I think Hollywood Brown, definitely. Until we find out and know more about exactly how long he's gonna miss, which they don't have any idea right now. That's gonna make Brown slide down in the rankings. So I would proceed with caution on Brown, who we're gonna talk about here real shortly. On our rankings, given what just happened, I would definitely put Worthy where Brown is. And then, I don't know that Brown should necessarily even be in the top 50 until we find out, because he's going to slide down.
I don't even know if Brown will be in the top 60, depending on how long the injury is.
So let's wait and see. But I definitely think Worthy has opportunity here. We need to, I definitely think he has opportunity here, and we need to see if he's going to take advantage of it. It's always hard to know with Kansas City because Andy Reid likes to mix things up, and he likes to spread the ball around. I was really surprised that Rice had the year he did last year. He likes to mix things up. Yep. So I think it's really going to be hard to judge right now, but I definitely do think out of all the receivers on the team right now, Worthy's the one with the most upside and the potential to definitely break the top 50.
I think of any receiver on this team, the only one I would currently draft would be Worthy, just due to the fact that as long as he doesn't get hurt before the season starts, looking at the depth chart, technically he is the wide receiver 1 right now on this team. So Mahomes will have to throw the ball to people. He should get a lot of targets. Yes, I think Mahomes will rely on Sky Moore or Justin Watson or McCole Hardman, who he's already had a connection with in the past, but for all we know, Xavier Worthy could have a year that Rashee Rice had last year, and it might have to happen for this offense to succeed because you got a hurt receiver, and now, and you have a suspended receiver. So,
yeah, and keep Justin Watson in your back of your head too. Not necessarily to draft, but he could be one of those guys that steps up given his experience as part of this offense. Sky Moore, I think, is also another guy that has opportunity to step up, but I know that Sky Moore hasn't been consistent and they haven't been necessarily happy with him. So I really feel like that Justin Watson is going to have an opportunity to slide up there and have an impact as well. But he's definitely a deep, deep, deep sleeper type of guy in fantasy.
Yeah, and I wouldn't doubt it if Andy Reid maybe notices his receiving core isn't the greatest, and he's gonna have to figure something out. Like with Rice last year, his second half of the year was way better than his first half, but I think that's because Andy Reid found a way to get him more involved. So maybe that's something where we see a slow start to Worthy this year, and then he finds a way of getting Worthy more involved in that offense. But I also wouldn't doubt it if we saw more production out of both Travis Kelsey and Noah Gray on that offense. I could see a lot more two tight end setups just because they really don't have like that set receiving core, you know?
Yeah, well, and I know that they've been playing around with Kadarius Toney at running back and
Yeah.
stuff as well, so that's another name to watch out for. For me personally, it's really hard on the Chiefs' offense to rely on any receivers. I mean, until you actually see what Andy Reid's going to do. And, Andy Reid is one of the best coaches in the history of the NFL for a reason, and that's because he keeps his opponents guessing. And so you never know what Reid's going to do, game to game because he always switches things up and stuff. So and that's what makes him so great.